Adam Taxon here, getting excited for Championship Sunday in the NFL. Yeah, I didn't like the whole Kaepernick thing, but about halfway, a little past halfway in the season, I dropped the whole boycott NFL thing because, well, I'm not going to lie, I'm a lifelong Philadelphia Eagles fan, and they have been doing very well. We'll know if they make the Super Bowl in a few hours. And also, I thought it sort of, the boycott NFL thing jumped the shark in part because people were writing so many clickbait, so-called conservative articles with inaccurate information. I wrote one for Jews News, not that I recommend that site, about like the lies that there were all these empty seats at a Philadelphia Eagles game. No, Gateway Pundit, it wasn't that way, but we're not talking about that now. I have to add something after the fact as an edit here. There were some empty seats at the Eagles' final home game against the Cowboys, the final week of the year. It was bitterly cold, and the Eagles had already clinched home field advantage. They were resting their starters, and it was a meaningless game. So, but just to be clear, I was a little bit disappointed just a little while ago, let me find this, to see that Michael Bennett, who is a little bit notorious, great player, no doubt about it, for the Seattle Seahawks, who, by the way, this is the first time in 6 years they didn't make the postseason, and actually all those years they, from 2012 to 2016, they even advanced around. That was every year of Russell Wilson's career, but that's who he is, great defensive player, but I'm not so sure I like him as a person. There was that incident. Well, here's what NFL Network is doing. They're featuring him as a panelist before the game. I just happened to see on Twitter that Joe Hayden, LaShawn McCoy, a former Eagle, and Michael Bennett were just in a panel having discussion, featured on NFL Network, about playing against Tom Brady. Michael Bennett, we can say what we want about Kaepernick, he's not in the league, is he's as boycott NFL as anyone. And yeah, you could probably make a case for Malcolm Jenkins, who saved the Eagles season last week. I will admit that. I'm biased. But I'm a little shocked to see him in the studio as an analyst. I don't really like it. Not what I want to feel good about when I'm saying, okay, I'm going to watch the Eagles and enjoy it later. Let me just remind you who he is. There's this article from Outkick the Coverage. I'm going to give you the links to the articles here. Las Vegas police prove Michael Bennett lied about racism charges. And I'm going to read you a little bit from it. Back on September 7th, I was the only... Well, let me tell you who wrote it. Clay Travis. Okay, yeah, Clay Travis, big name. Back on September 7th, I was the only person brave enough to point out something important. Michael Bennett was lying about most of the claims of racism he had levied against Las Vegas police, as the rest of the sports media fell all over themselves to condemn the Las Vegas police. Now, with the shooting there, another story. I'm not going to talk about the Las Vegas police there. Clay Travis continues, I actually reviewed the evidence and pointed out that Bennett's story didn't add up. And for that, I was ridiculed and called racist by thousands online. But guess what? When I know I'm right, I don't run from critics. I double and triple down. Go to the original article. I have the site. I'm just going to tell you, he has several things to note from the video. I'm not going to tell you in detail what they are, but I am going to tell you what they are. 1. Michael Bennett looks incredibly suspicious, crouching and running when the police are looking for an active shooter. 2. Race played no part in this story at all. 3. There is no excessive force used and no one threatened to blow Bennett's head off. And then he gets into the entire thing as a line. So you can read that from Clay Travis. That's not all with Michael Bennett. Here there is an article. This is, I'm giving you one from very fake news, CNN, but I'm sure they got it right here. It's just quoting him. Michael Bennett, I can't stand for the national anthem. Really one of the leaders on this thing. And CNN breathlessly writes, Michael Bennett can no longer stay silent. And while he likely doesn't want to have the same fate as Colin Kaepernick, who is without an NFL team, well, CNN, Bennett's a good player. I mean, he may not be soon because he's getting up there in years, but there was no question he's a good player, unlike Kaepernick. But it says, the same fate as Colin Kaepernick, who is without an NFL team. The Seattle Seahawks defensive end is taking social action. It's going off here. I can't stand for the national anthem. Bennett, who is 31 and in his 9th NFL season, told CNN on Tuesday, I can't stand right now. I'm not going to be standing until I see the equality and freedom. And then something about Charlottesville. But here's something else. Man, I lost the page. Michael Bennett, Israel trip. Yeah, I'm biased. You can see I'm a Jew here. But here's something from the Washington Post in February of 2017. Seattle Seahawks Michael Bennett withdraws from Israel trip, citing sympathy for Palestine. No such country as Palestine, Washington Post, but and I'll tell you what it says. Seattle Seahawks defensive lineman Michael Bennett has withdrawn at the last minute from a sponsored trip to Israel, saying the government there is using him for a public relations initiative and that he sympathizes with Palestinians. Well, interesting. And then he wrote this whole Dear World. I'll read you what he said to Dear World. Michael Bennett, whose Twitter handle is MosesBread72. Dear World, I was scheduled to make a visit to Israel with fellow NFL players. I was excited to see this remarkable and historic part of the world with my own eyes. I was not aware until reading this article about the trip in the Times of Israel that my itinerary was being constructed by the Israeli government for the purposes of making me, in the words of a government official, an influencer and opinion former who would then be an ambassador of goodwill. I will not be used in such a manner. Okay, but I question how genuine this is. What did he think the trip was? And now we got publicity out of that. When I do go to Israel, and I do plan to go, it will be to see not only Israel, but also the West Bank and Gaza, so I can see how the Palestinians, who have called this land home for thousands of years, live their lives. And he may want to get his facts straight. Note how many of them moved in after the Jews made the land productive in the late 19th century, early 20th century, even continuing today. Blah, blah, blah. You can read that for yourself. And then he quotes John Carlos, who put his fist up at the 1968 Olympic Games. I question how genuine this guy is. But the real point is it's leaving a bad taste in my mouth where when people in the Philadelphia area, Minnesota area, New England area, though they're used to it by now, and Jacksonville area, really excited about the championship games, NFL, the flag thing aside. Why, of all the players the NFL Network could put on, why did they have to put him on? That's all I'm saying here. All right, I've talked enough.